Hi, it's Mark here, and today I'm going to share 5 tips with you on how you can learn English in 2023. My first tip is to learn and practice sentences about you. Now, this one is an easy strategy that I use to learn grammar and vocabulary. All you need to do is write sentences about your life. Have a look at this small text that I wrote. I was born and raised in Vancouver. I spent most of my life there. It's a beautiful city where you can see both snow-capped mountains and warm sunny beaches. Now, that was a simple short text about myself, about my life, and it was filled with simple but important vocabulary and grammar structures. Let's have a closer look. Here was the first sentence. I was born and raised in Vancouver. Here, you might see a simple sentence, but I see, after years of experience, potential for errors. First, there may be a verb tense error. A lot of English learners don't use the past simple. I was born or I was raised. Also, yes, these need to be passive verbs. Was born and was raised. And also, sometimes students just don't use these simple words. A lot of students ask, what words do I need to know? And my response is, it depends on what you want to talk about. So here's my advice. Write a short biography of yourself. Talk about where you're from, what your life was like, maybe some nice stories about things you've done or people you love. Even writing it in your first language and then carefully translating it will help you learn the language. Read that text out loud like you're telling a new friend about yourself at the coffee shop, and you'll internalize this language. Now, look at this. It's a beautiful city where you can. So here's some complex grammar. A non-defining adjective clause for all you grammar experts out there, but what I like to call a describe cool places clause. Once you internalize this little phrase, where you can talk about all kinds of places. A market where you can buy fresh vegetables, or just sit down and have a cup of coffee. Or a major metropolitan city where you can meet locals or people from all over the world. Or a beautiful city where you can find Gothic churches and modern art museums. So, you see, by starting with a short story about you, you can really begin to meaningfully internalize grammar. I always tell my students, you are not learning English. English is learning you. English is learning about your life, your dreams, and what you think is cool. Let's move on. Tip number 2, read a lot. So if you're able to understand me and you've been studying language for a while, you should be able to start reading. Reading is dollar for dollar the most effective tool to improve your English. You're gonna hit so many muscles. You're improving your grammar. You're improving your vocabulary. You're reviewing and internalizing basic grammar and vocabulary as well. You're improving your reading speed, obviously, and you're exposing yourself to new ideas that are going to help you speak better, either in your English test or in conversation with your new friends or coworkers. Reading is also great because you can do it anywhere. You can be on a bus. It can be in the morning, during coffee break. It is super flexible, unlike an English class. You can also read at any speed that you are comfortable at. You can read a bit slower if you're tired. You can also read for however long you want. It can be 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or over an hour. But you might be thinking, what should I read? Well, there are a few options. The easiest one I can think of is that you can start reading Cambridge graded readers. You can find these books at many libraries. Or you can check out the materials at ercentral.com, where there are tons of novels and short stories to dive into. If you want to go a little deeper into business, science, the environment, start reading the news. I always recommend becoming a reader of the news. The BBC or Al Jazeera are 2 places where you can start, or you can check out newsela.com. This website has articles written at different levels if you want to work your way up to BBC or Al Jazeera. And of course, you can read novels. That's a fantastic way to improve. The main thing is don't quit. Try to read 3 or 4 times a week, and by the end of 2023, you're going to be amazed with where you are. Tip number 3, start to listen. Yes, more listening. This is another easy one that you could start today. Now, many of you are probably already watching movies in English, and this is fine, but it does depend on what you're watching, and it depends on what your goals are. If you were watching big Hollywood movies or sitcoms like Friends or Brooklyn Nine-Nine, this is fine. Any kind of listening is going to help tune your ear for pronunciation and even help learn basic elements of small talk. But if you have higher goals, like taking IELTS or getting a job in a more professional environment, you might want to consider more formal sources of listening. Personally, I like listening to the news. This gives me new vocabulary about important topics, and I get professional sounding pronunciation. My recommendations are to check out BBC, ABC, that's Australia, or CBC, that's Canada, and build a habit of listening. Now, the main thing to remember is to build the habit. If you turn on the radio today and you listen to the radio and you don't understand, don't quit. Listen for 10 or 15 minutes, then come back the next day, and the next week, and the next 3 weeks. And with consistency, you'll be amazed at how much more you understand. Remember, the goal isn't to understand everything. The goal is to increase how much you understand. Then, in 3 weeks, 3 months, you'll be impressed with how far you've gone. Learning a language is not a sprint, it's a marathon. Patience and time win. In my foreign languages, when I think about how limited my listening was when I started versus where it is today, it's incredible, and you can do it. Tip 4, learn from your mistakes. Yep, you're going to make mistakes. There is no way around this. In fact, I tell my students every month they owe me 1,000 mistakes by the end of the course. If they aren't making mistakes, then they aren't trying hard enough, and they're not going to learn faster. In class, speak and write, make mistakes, take the feedback, and say thank you. Be grateful for the feedback and the opportunity to improve. When I'm speaking in German or Catalan, if my friends correct me, I write down the correct form and I review it later. Sometimes I learn the correct form or word quickly, and sometimes I make the mistake again, write it down again, and review it again. I don't mind making mistakes, but I hate making the same mistakes again and again and again. So write it down, learn it, good things will happen. My final tip, measure yourself based on where you started. Don't compare yourself to others. Don't compare yourself to where you want to be. Compare yourself to where you were the day before, the week before, the month before. I still remember the first time I read the news in Catalan, it was a disaster. After 3 months, I was so much further ahead. When I was learning German, I accomplished a lot in 3 months, but sadly, I was still really hard on myself. It just wasn't good enough. I didn't quit. But my negative attitude slowed me down a lot. When I learned Catalan, however, I had a good attitude. I never got down on myself. And every 3 months, I was happy with where I was. So remember, every few weeks, every few months, look at where you are and think about where you started. I guarantee you're going to be happy. Here's a bonus tip if you're going to be taking a high-stakes English test. Sign up to www.e2testprep.com. We have everything you'll need for test preparation. And that's it. 5 simple things you can do to learn English in 2023. And remember, you can start some of these today, right after this video. Build the right habits, and in 2024, you'll look back and think, Wow. Good luck.